On the morning after Christmas in 1996, the quiet streets of Boulder, Colorado were still dusted with snow. Inside a large brick home on 15th Street, something had gone terribly wrong. A 6-year-old girl with bright eyes and a stage smile known across local pageant circuits had vanished from her own bedroom. Her name was JonBenét Ramsey, and before that winter day was over, her name would echo across every television screen in America. This is the story of the night that began one of the most debated criminal investigations in modern history, and it started with a phone call. The Ramsey family appeared from the outside to be living the American dream. John Ramsey was a successful businessman, the president of Access Graphics, a company that had recently surpassed $1 billion in revenue. His wife, Patsy Ramsey, a former beauty queen, devoted much of her time to raising their 2 children in Boulder, Colorado. Their son Burke was 9 years old. Their daughter JonBenét, just 6, had already made a name for herself in children's beauty pageants, winning titles and trophies that filled shelves in the Ramsey home. Boulder in the 1990s was known for its safety, affluence, and tight-knit community. The Ramseys lived in a large Tudor-style house in a well-established neighborhood. It was the kind of doors were often left unlocked, and neighbors felt comfortable letting their children play freely. To many, the Ramseys were polished, successful, and picture-perfect. But on December 26, 1996, that image shattered. At 5:52 a.m., Patsy Ramsey dialed 911. Her voice was frantic. She told the dispatcher that her daughter had been kidnapped. There was a ransom note. The dispatcher asked what the note said. Patsy replied that it demanded $118,000. The amount was unusual, specific, not rounded. Coincidentally, it was close to the amount of John Ramsey's recent business bonus. Patsy explained that she had found the note on the staircase inside the house. It was reportedly 3 pages long and written on paper from inside the home. During the call, Patsy's panic was clear. She said JonBenét was gone. Officers were dispatched immediately. What they walked into would soon become one of the most scrutinized crime scenes in American history. When Boulder police arrived at the Ramsey home, they were responding to what they believed was a kidnapping. The priority in such cases is speed. Time is everything. But what unfolded inside the house would complicate that urgency. The ransom note warned the Ramseys not to contact authorities. It stated that JonBenét would be harmed if police were notified, yet officers were already inside. Friends of the family began arriving as well, offering support. The home quickly filled with people moving through rooms, consoling Patsy, making phone calls, attempting to help. In hindsight, many would question whether the scene had been preserved properly, but at the time, officers were operating under the assumption that this was an active kidnapping, not something else. John Ramsey was described as calm but concerned. Patsy was visibly distressed. Officers conducted a cursory search of the house, but did not immediately find signs of forced entry. There were doors and windows throughout the large home. Some were checked. A basement window had been broken months earlier, according to John, but he stated it had already been damaged prior to that morning. Hours passed. The ransom note had instructed the Ramseys to wait for a call between 8 and 10 a.m. The call never came. As the morning stretched on, tension inside the house grew. Around 1 p.m., a detective on the scene suggested that John Ramsey and a family friend conduct a more thorough search of the house, starting from top to bottom. It was a decision that would change everything. John made his way to the basement. The basement of the Ramsey home was expansive and cluttered, containing storage rooms and unfinished areas. In a small interior room, behind a closed door, John found his daughter. He immediately called out. Officers rushed downstairs. JonBenét Ramsey had been inside her own home the entire time. What had been treated as a kidnapping was now a homicide investigation. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Shock turned to disbelief, and questions began multiplying. The discovery raised immediate concerns. How could someone have entered the home, taken JonBenét from her bedroom, written a lengthy ransom note inside the house, and then left her behind? Why had there been no obvious signs of forced entry? Who would demand exactly $118,000? The amount matched John Ramsey's recent business bonus, an oddly specific detail that fueled speculation almost immediately. Police now faced a complicated and sensitive situation. A child had been found deceased in their family home. The family had reported her missing just hours earlier. From that moment on, every movement, every word, every decision made inside that house would be analyzed, debated, and reanalyzed for decades. In the first 24 hours, missteps were later acknowledged by law enforcement. The house had not been immediately secured as a homicide scene because officers believed they were responding to a kidnapping. Friends and family had moved throughout the home. Items had potentially been disturbed. Investigators would later say that critical time had been lost. The Boulder Police Department was not accustomed to handling cases of this magnitude. The city had a reputation for low violent crime. Suddenly, they were thrust into the national spotlight. By the end of the day on December 26th, the story had begun spreading beyond Colorado. The image of JonBenét and her pageant costumes quickly became the face of the case. Television networks replayed photos of her in sequin dresses and tiaras. The contrast between her glamorous stage presence and her age sparked strong reactions. The media coverage was immediate and intense. Within days, satellite trucks lined the streets of Boulder. Reporters speculated openly about motives and suspects. The case became less of a local tragedy and more of a national obsession. Talk shows debated theories, headlines questioned the parents, rumors spread faster than verified facts. For many viewers, the story seemed almost surreal. A wealthy family, a ransom note written inside the home, a child beauty queen, a crime with no clear suspect. The mystery deepened with every passing hour. Investigators faced an unusual puzzle. The ransom note was unusually long for such crimes, spanning multiple pages. Handwriting analysis would become a central focus. Patsy Ramsey was asked to provide handwriting samples. So were others. Experts disagreed. Some said similarities existed. Others said the note could not be conclusively tied to anyone in the home. The lack of forced entry remained a critical issue. Was there an intruder, or had someone inside staged a kidnapping? These were questions investigators would wrestle with from the beginning. But publicly, authorities were cautious. They stated that no one had been ruled out. They also said no one had been formally charged. The uncertainty created a vacuum, and in that vacuum, speculation flourished. Public opinion began dividing almost immediately. Some believed an intruder theory made sense, pointing to the broken basement window and the size of the home. Others found it difficult to understand how an outsider could spend so much time inside the house unnoticed. The ransom note's tone and phrasing were dissected line by line on national television. Even the amount of money requested became a talking point on evening news programs. The Ramseys, meanwhile, maintained their innocence. They expressed grief and frustration over what they described as suspicion directed toward them. In interviews months later, they would speak publicly about their daughter and their desire for justice. But in those first days, the silence between law enforcement updates left room for endless commentary, and the story was only getting bigger. As December turned into January, the case showed no signs of resolution. The evidence was complex, the timeline was tight, the narrative was fragmented. The public wanted answers. Who writes a ransom note inside the house? Why leave the child behind? Why that specific amount of money? How could a crime like this happen in one of America's safest cities? Each new detail seemed to raise more questions than it answered. The investigation moved forward, but clarity remained out of reach. The Boulder Police Department worked alongside outside experts, forensic analysts, and eventually state and federal agencies. Still, no arrest came. No clear explanation emerged. Behind closed doors, tensions reportedly rose between investigators and prosecutors. Strategies differed, theories clashed. Was this a carefully planned intrusion or a tragedy that began within the walls of the Ramsey home? Years would pass without a definitive resolution. But in those first crucial hours and days, the foundation of a decades-long debate had already been laid. The scene inside that house on December 26th would be examined over and over again. The ransom note would be studied by handwriting experts for years. Every statement made by the family would be replayed. Every decision by law enforcement would be scrutinized. What happened in that house during the night of December 25, 1996? At what point did events spiral into a tragedy? Was there an intruder watching from outside? Or was the truth closer to home? The case of JonBenét Ramsey did more than shock a community. It divided a nation. And as investigators dug deeper, new layers of complexity began to surface. DNA evidence, grand jury proceedings, conflicting expert opinions. But those developments would come later. For now, the mystery remained in its earliest, most chaotic stage. A missing child, a ransom note written inside her own home, a discovery in the basement that changed everything, and a case that refused to provide simple answers. Because what happened next would transform suspicion into controversy, and controversy into a debate that still hasn't ended. In Part 2, we explore why the JonBenét Ramsey case continues to divide people decades later, how shifting evidence, media influence, and unanswered questions have kept this mystery alive long after the headlines first faded.